Creating a dragon's eye with Mr. G.
We're going to start out with a stencil, a circle stencil. Some of you may already have that drawn on for you. Otherwise, we'll just use a circular object. A lot of you have drawn eyes before. It's kind of a football shape, kind of an almond shape. In this case, I'm going to kind of use the eyelid to overlap the circle. So we'll make this football shape, but it's going to cover up part of that circle. So it's going to overlap. So when we overlap, we have to erase the other portions that we can't actually see. So now the big question is, what does a dragon's eye actually look like? Well, a lot of us have seen pictures of it, and if you've seen the pupils, they're a lot like cat's eyes. They're kind of a very thin oval shape on its side. You can kind of see from both of these examples of cat's eyes that's what we're going to be drawing here. We also call those ellipses. Now with every eye that we ever draw, we want to make sure that we get a highlight in there. So we're going to add a highlight right here, and then we're going to add another one right here. And we're going to erase the lines inside, so it's going to be all pretty much pure light. That's the reflection of light. Here we're going to start making our scales. If you look at our pictures of dragon's eyes, they have scales, and every scale is different. So yours can be completely different. Notice they're not perfectly circles, they're not perfect squares. They're just shapes. So I'm going to make these shapes going a little bit smaller towards each side of the eye. So you can kind of decide what you want to do. When we look at the later one that I do, you'll notice that the scales are much bigger. So you may want to do that. It might be easier for you depending on what kind of a challenge you'd like. And so I'm just going to fill these in like this. Some people might think that these look like teeth, but they're not. They're just what I imagine scales on this particular dragon eye is going to be. So now I'm just going to put a little bit of an edge to this eye, just a little tiny one. We probably won't even see it at the end of the drawing, but just to take note of where the outside of the edge is going to be. And so for the scales, I'm going to keep adding some more scales on top, because if you look at our examples, you'll see layers and layers of scales. And like I said, these can be any shape you want them to be. If you want them to be circular or triangular or whatever, it's your own creation. So I'm just going to fill these out. And then I'm going to put a kind of a bigger eyelid. And this you might consider doing this just from the start, putting some kind of a line in there. And what I did is I used this line as kind of a guideline, and then I just put my scales inside of there. And then I'm just going to fill out the rest of them with bigger and bigger scales as they go out. You can kind of see how that works. Now I want to make sure that I fill in my pupil. So I'm going to take my black. You probably want to use black for that, because that'll be the eye. The pupil is going to be probably one of the most important parts of your drawing. That's my phone, my text going off. So you want to make sure you fill it in. You leave those highlights completely white, and we'll go all the way around them. Then I'm going to just darken the edges. You can use whatever colors you want to. You'll see in my second drawing that I decided to use green instead. So the colors of your eyes can be completely different than your scales. I think I chose an orange and a yellow for this. I could have even chosen, well, I'm going to choose red, so I didn't want it to be all red. So I just went with a warm color scheme. You can do whatever you want. You can put purple on the outside and green on the inside if you want to. Like I said, this is kind of your own creative version of what you think a dragon's eye might look like. So now comes the part of just coloring them all in. So I'm going to add a little bit of shade on the left side of each. I'm going to pretend that the light is coming from the right. And so I'm going to add shade on the left side. And I'll go back over all of that later. You can decide to do that right away, or you can decide to do it a little bit later on, kind of like I did. So I'm just going to color these in first. And then after that is when I'll start adding a little bit of shading to make it look a little bit more realistic. And we'll see how you guys do with yours too. So I'm just going to give you a few ideas of what I was doing. Notice how I push down harder on the colored pencil, and you can use different colors for this too if you want to. I ended up doing that a little later on. but you just put the shadow on one side and you keep the other side kind of light. And so it's a bit repetitive, but that's how you make it look real. That's where I tried a little bit of different colors on there. I wasn't really thrilled about it, so I just decided to stay with the red. I'm going to add a little bit of purple in here later on and color in between. There's my text again. I'm going to color in between to fill in those white spots, because there's not going to be white spots, or those, inside, in between the scales there. So I'll fill that in with purple. You can fill yours in with whatever color you would like to. I'm going to add a little bit of shadow on the eye. I think that in the video it doesn't show the shadow that I made under the eyelid. So I'm going to erase the highlight just to make them stand out a little bit more. And I should probably color that eye in a little bit more too, because it's not quite dark enough. It's not quite like all black. So let's fill that in. And I could probably use some shading on the top. I'll throw in a different picture of that to show you kind of the end of what I did. So now the second one, I'm just going to probably just let play through for the most part. Notice on this one, I'm going to put the bottom of the eyelid underneath that pupil, because I realized in my last one I don't really even need that pupil, that shape. I'm just using it for a template for the eye itself. So we'll get that cat eye in there again. And I'll probably put an eyelid on here. Make sure you get the highlight in there. And then I'll start with the scales. So I'm going to make bigger scales. I think it's going to be a lot easier for those of you who don't want to do a lot of work like the last one. And then so I got the scale size. Now I'm going to make kind of an eyelid around that. It's kind of a template to put my scales in. It'll make it a lot easier for me to just kind of fit the scales in. See how I can just plop them right in there? And then I can just go beyond that. And see, I didn't really make that many scales for this one. And then we'll fill in the pupil, keep that highlight going, and then I decided to use green, like I mentioned earlier. And I'll probably use some, what did I use here? Yellow, I think. Yeah, put some yellow in there. Experiment. This is all about using your colored pencils. That's what this exercise is all about, is just learning how to make gradients with your colored pencils, and using different colors to try to blend together and see how everything comes together. I stuck with kind of a blue-green theme, which is a cool theme, not a warm theme, not warm color, but cool colors. I should point out that the yellow is a warm color, but the blues and the greens, those are more known to be cool colors. So with the first dragon, we did kind of a warm color theme. So I'm going over these with a different colored pencil now. It's kind of a blue, and when you blend different blues together, it's really kind of fun to see what comes out. So you should experiment with that. This is the kind of project that you can do where you can experiment with different colors, because it's not like you're drawing an apple or something what the colors should be. This is whatever colors you would like to. So underneath the eyelid there, I like to add a little bit of shadow. You might want to try that too. Those are kind of the finishing touches. I also want to put dark lines in between where the scales are. That'll give some shadow. That'll accentuate this, make the shadows stand out a little bit more. So you'll see me doing that too. But you can see kind of how that lighter blue is mixed in with the aqua blue. And then I'm going to add some highlights, some yellow. I guess I did do some warm colors in here, a little bit more than I thought. But yeah, I'm going to add these. See how these dark lines make everything stand out? So make sure you try to do that if you can. But I'm not using black. I'm using just a darker blue, I believe. And there is the finished product. Thanks for watching.